So next is the results that were obtained from the hierarchical regression analysis, which is a pretty complicated statistical test, but that's not really the important aspect of this. The important part is the findings that they got from it. So for women, they found that lower task goals and higher ability approach goals were associated with imposter fears. And this coincides with entity theory because they had lower task goals. They're less likely to have task goals, which, as I said earlier, task goals pertain to caring about a personal improvement and eventually getting to mastery, whereas ability approach goals, which imposters had a high amount of for women, is kind of more caring more about outcomes and where you kind of fall amongst your peers and wanting to outperform your peers. And this relates way more to entity theory because entity theory is when you have a fixed mindset about intelligence. And so that's where the women kind of fell in this regression. And for the men, they found that higher ability avoid goals were associated with imposter fears. So if you guys remember, ability avoid goals had to do with the fear of failure and avoiding looking incompetent. So you don't even you avoid the task because you're scared of failing the task, and that's what was found. So that was found to be correlated with men who had imposter fears. So this kind of shows that there is a difference between men and women in terms of what their imposter fears are correlated with and the types of goals that their imposter fears are correlated with. But it is important to understand that even though these correlations are slightly different, all of them still fall under the normative conception of ability, and that predominates in all these cases. So the normative conception of ability is um, your definition of being competent is more to do with how you perform compared to others and whether you outperform others rather than um, comparing yourself to yourself and improving based on that. So even though the women and men had different correlations, it still falls under the umbrella that they have a norm, how imposters for men and women have a normative conception of ability where they care about outperforming others and where they rank amongst their peers. And this leads to discussions. My last discussion question, number 6. Um, a main focus of the study was looking at gender differences. So I wanted to ask if you think that the profession or work environment or general age demographic of the participants moderates the relationship between gender and imposter fears. So that's a little bit confusing. So in other words, do you think there is a profession or other group in which men would display stronger imposter fears and lower confidence than women? Or is the finding that women are more adversely affected by imposter fears consistent across any condition? Or do you think that there are definitely scenarios where men may struggle with imposters at a greater degree than women do? So moving on to discussion. So this study looked at the parallels between the two concepts of imposter fears and achievement goals. And the results support that the two constructs may be very closely related, and that imposter fears may be a result of the achievement goals that the imposter adopts, as I talked about in the last slide. Or imposter fears and ability goals may have common antecedents, so they might stem from the same place. And there are definitely limitations of this study, and they're talked about in the discussion. One of the limitations is that undergraduate students definitely may not be generalizable to the entire population, especially um, ones in the introductory psychology class. And there was also a very small sample of women in this study, only 42 of them, and they only made up 31% of the total participants, which is definitely an issue. And there's always an issue with self report data um, in terms of whether it's reliable or whether you're getting true facts. And also, there's no causality in the study, only correlations because it's a cross-sectional study. All the all the questionnaires were done at the same time, so there's no way to figure out which came first, if something caused something else. The only thing we can really get from the study is correlations and ask questions and do further research into the causality of imposterism as it deals with the different goal orientations. And this last slide summarizes all the questions for discussion that I already talked about. And yeah, I hope this helped with your understanding of the paper. Thank you.